Welcome back, one and all loyal listeners, frequent listeners, and even our new listeners. I'm so glad you're here. I am Dr. David Hopkins, humanities professor, your host and guide through this crazy maze of life that we're living right now, where ups often seem down and downs feel up, or maybe you just feel like you are on some crazy spin cycle. Wherever you're at, heck, maybe you got it all together. DM me. Let me know how you got it all figured out. I would love to hear it. But anyway, this is the Intellectual Freedom Podcast. Let's go ahead, jump into our talk today. And in this episode, we are tracking through, about the 3/4 point of the book and cutting through the fat and meat of Neil Postman's arguments. And we're getting close to the bone. So if you're following along, it's chapters 7 through 9 we are working through. But if you found us just now for the first time, look, you don't have to read or be reading this book along with us. Our talk today will still leave you maybe a little stunned, maybe hopefully with an aha moment or two, or at least I hope just enough with the introductory talk that you'll get it as we get going. So let's just jump right into our discussion today. We don't do complexity anymore. We order our groceries online and have them show up at our house a couple hours later. We get annoyed when there isn't 5G Wi-Fi everywhere we go. We feel we've entered the Middle Ages almost without that. Waiting in line for, maybe 5 minutes is like an eternity. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but let's face it, we don't do complexity anymore. There's a study, UC Irvine found our average uninterrupted focus has fallen to just 47 seconds. 47. It's not an attention span. That's a blink with some ambition behind it. Stanford showed heavy media multitaskers are not sharper. They're actually worse at focusing, filtering noise, and remembering what they just heard. Marianne Wolf at UCLA warns us we're raising a generation whose brains are trained to skim, not to think. And Nicholas Carr, another academic, argues our brains are being rewired for speed, not depth, and neuroscience is backing him up. These digital lifestyles, they decreased average human attention span from 12 seconds to 8 seconds. Allegedly, and you've probably heard this before, that's shorter than a goldfish's attention span. This goldfish comparison might be a little bit cliche, but the underlying trend isn't. Our attention span is collapsing. When everything is urgent, nothing is important, and your brain can no longer tell the difference. Here's the reality we all have to face. We want fast, quick, clear, fun. Skip the details. Give me the headline so I can move on. This is our world in so many, many ways. Today I want to talk about something we've lost. It's something subtle, but it is something sacred. And it's not our intelligence. It's our seriousness. We live in an age where nuance feels like external noise, depth feels like delay, and silence feels like death. Neil Postman said it best. He said, "A people who are informed by television have no need for or tolerance of complexity." And today, as we talk about education, politics, and religion, because that's where we are in the book, I mean, my goodness, these are areas of humanity that head into deep water, or at least they should take us into deep water, as the impact on our lives is profound. Think about it. How well and how and what we are educated in, that's serious business. Let's not even start with the politicians with the power over our country, or religion in the depth of your own personal life. My goodness, whether you experience religion deeply or have no religion at all, I mean, those are metaphysical questions. Not very suitable for a TikTok or 1 minute reel post. But again, people who are informed by television have no need for or tolerance for complexity. That line hit me hard because what Postman described in 1985 isn't just TV anymore. It's literally everything. It's the classroom, it's political ads, it's even religion. And it's made us a civilization that no longer knows how to think long thoughts. So today, let's go deeper into amusing ourselves to death. And again, we're in chapters 7 through 9. And let's just briefly look at how entertainment has quietly devoured the serious parts of our culture and the implications of that happening. Now, in full disclosure, I have to admit, before reading this book, we're going to talk about education here. Sesame Street was the example as the kind of like the beginning of the death of education. It never would have crossed my mind, like ever. I can rattle off 20 reasons for why our education system is pathetic and failing, and Sesame Street wouldn't even have been in the top 100 maybe if mentioned at all. But what Postman wrote about Sesame Street, he didn't really call it evil. What he called it was deceptive. Because it felt like salvation when it hit the scenes. Kids loved it. Parents adored it. Educators thought it was a great idea. Finally, for the first time, education was quote unquote fun. I mean, I grew up with this. Cute characters going over words and alphabet, reading and math. I mean, heck, how could this even be considered something bad? But Postman saw the trap, and I want you to slow down and just consider this. He said, quote, Sesame Street is not the enemy of education, but it is the enemy of the traditional classroom, end quote. Now, you might be thinking, why? I don't get it. Why? Well, from the argument from Postman's standpoint, is because it taught children not to love learning per se, but to love being entertained while learning. And those two are not the same thing. To love learning, but to love being entertained while learning. Imagine you're a parent in the 70s. You turn on PBS, you see your toddler dancing with Big Bird, singing the alphabet, and you think, this is brilliant. They're learning. I don't even have to do anything. I can just turn on the TV, and then I can go about my own another task in the house. But what were your kids learning? Sure, you could say on the surface they were learning the alphabet, but at a deeper level, your kids were learning that the idea of learning something, it should always be colorful, should always be fast, and it should be funny. This is where I was saying this is subtle, but deadly. So I want you to pause for 1 second, even maybe in your mind's eye, recall Sesame Street right now. I think all of us at some point in our lives, we've pretty much all seen a Sesame Street segment, and recall the characters, recall how and what they taught, how long it took them to go through something. Then imagine this, if you can, what deep, intense, real profound learning actually is like. Now, granted, obviously, these are kids, right? They're in early developmental stages of learning. But they're going to be, we wouldn't expect them to be deciphering Hamlet soliloquies, for example. But what is happening is the groundwork is being laid by TV. They're learning that silence and sitting on a thought is boring, that stillness is a failure, that you have to think hard about something sucks. It's not fun. So then fast forward 50 years. Now picture a modern college classroom The professor dimming the lights, queuing up YouTube videos, TED Talks, explainer animations. The textbooks are gone. They're replaced by playlists. And if you don't think complex textbooks are for the most part gone, especially in the undergraduate level, think again. And if you think that many professors are left that have their students read an entire textbook, I hate to tell you, but you are sadly mistaken. Students are very, very rarely challenged to read at a complex level in large page counts because, quite frankly, our attention spans don't support this, and students just are not going to read it. I know this firsthand. I've seen it. I've seen the degradation over the last 20 years of how our students in our classroom cannot read long, complex books very often. Maybe the top 10 to 15%, but other than that, it doesn't happen. Students lean back in class, not forward, when hardcore discussions come up. The classroom feels more like a cinema than a sanctuary for ideas. It looks efficient. It looks engaging. It looks entertaining. A lot of the education departments would just clap at how entertaining education is now. It's meeting the students where they're at. But let's be honest. I've been teaching for 20 plus years, and how often do you hear a student say, "Oh my gosh, that class or instructor was boring"? What's the opposite of boring? Entertaining. This is the expectation in our modern classroom. Our kids have been reshaped or shaped by the communication mediums they use. And it's not books anymore. It's TV, it's TikTok, it's YouTube, it's Reels, it's Instagram. The brain learns that this is communication. And when the brain is challenged in another direction, like thinking deeply on complex ideas, the brain rebels against it and stops. We try to read and our mind is instantaneously distracted. We fall asleep or we forget what we have read after a few minutes. Our muscles in our brain for learning have become weakened. The mind in our modern world, we are spectators to learning. We're not always participants. You have seen those interviews on the street of our younger generation when they are asked the most basic of questions. And they embarrassingly, they can't even name the current president or vice president or just common huge story news items. And what do? Watch them in the videos when they don't know the answers. They don't hide in shame. They're not embarrassed. They laugh at it. They think their own ignorance is funny. They think their own ignorance is entertaining. Well, I just want to say this, and it might be controversial. That isn't funny. And you and I, we should not think it's funny. Some things in life are serious, and they should be taken as such. I mean, I joke, and I love to joke. Way too much, as my friends and family can often attest, but sometimes in some things about the general health and strength of our brains, it's not funny. And you and I should not shrug it off and laugh because we don't think deeply on serious topics anymore. Postman warned us. He said, quote, "Television's principal contribution to educational philosophy is the idea that teaching and entertainment are inseparable." And now, that idea defines our schools, our feeds, our blogs, our video posts, and ultimately our attention spans suffer because of it. We've built a system that rewards engagement over understanding. And when that happens, the first thing to die, it's not intellect. Seriousness dies first. And that's a real problem. That's a real problem in education. So what's the point? Why does it even matter? Because a society that can't sit still to think can't sit still to grow. There are deep, profound, complex problems in our world. I think we can all agree on that. Whether you want to work in a nonprofit social services organization or be a capitalist titan or work in the government, these profound problems impact real people's lives and young people listening. It's not okay to not build your mental muscle. We need you. If you're older, we need you to help teach the younger generations the implications of just being a superficial Barbie or Ken doll scrolling social media. Eventually, our education system will collapse from this disease. Look, a country with 350 million people like we have, and let's say 2 million high school graduates, I'm just making up these numbers, and the elite of the elite thinkers of those 2 million probably outperform every superstar in every country, as these elite thinkers in the United States, coupled with our incredible amount of resources and the ability to deploy capital on ideas from big thinkers, we are unparalleled in that regard. It isn't even close. But here is the kicker. If the middle to the lower levels get less and less educated and can't think for themselves critically, it can and it will have an adverse impact on our country in how our younger generations think, and how they think is how they vote and where they work and what they do and how they view life. It's important. It's a big deal. But let's transition now from education to politics. And this will be the section that, if you've listened to this podcast at all, it always gets my blood boiling the most. I'm not going to lie. Let's talk about politics. The arena that once required intellect, argument, and persuasion now runs on lightning slogans and smiles. I just have to stop here and pause for 1 second. And I think many of you can wonder, like, how in the world can we have so many politicians in Washington, D.C. that literally seem to be dumber than a box of rocks, and their comments are so oversimplistic, like caveman level simplistic, as they complain and whine and bitch about the other side and call them names. How does that even happen? Well, here's the truth, and let's just keep it real here. From my perspective, the reason we got so many dummies in politics is very smart, ethical people are not going to work there. They just would see it, evaluate it, and move on. So who do we get? I'm sorry, I'm sure there's lots of politicians that might go in with the right mindset that they're going to do positive things. They get there, though, and what they find is a cesspool of ignorance, ideological rot, and power-hungry ability to make lots of money, and they hang around. And those are the ones that stay. The ones that can't handle that leave usually after a term or two. And there are politicians that just say, yeah, no, I'm doing this a couple terms and then I'm gone. But then you see the other extreme, and look how ideologically ignorant most of them are. Been there 30, 40, 50 years. And my goodness, we see very clearly this concept of oversimplifying everything. But let me get back to it. And Postman wrote this, quote, "Our politics, religion, news, athletics, education, and commerce have all been transformed into congenial adjuncts of show business," end quote. And man, he was right. I'll just throw out one example very quickly. We could go through 50. Pretty much you could take one hardcore team blue, one hardcore team red, put them in a room. We'd get the same thing. Let's take immigration, a very hot button topic. Just one example. This is an issue that's as tangled as the human heart itself. I mean, immigration touches on pretty much everything. Economics, security, compassion, labor, history, education. All of it all tangled and wrapped together. But if you turn on the news and you get a politician to talk about immigration, what do you get usually? You get two caricatures shouting across the digital canyon. On the one side, if you don't allow immigration, you're a racist, you're cruel. On the other side, all this immigration, it's an invasion, it's lawlessness, it's destroying America. Each side builds a narrative for maximum emotional clarity and minimal thought. Because television, and now TikTok, YouTube, every micro clip that's replaced television, it just can't handle your brain and my brain. They don't handle complexity. And the politicians and those that mold these politicians, they know that we just don't handle complexity. So you got to dumb an issue down. It's allergic to nuance. Politicians need heroes and villains, applause lines and tears on cue. It's almost like a sporting event. No, actually, it probably is like a sporting event. Team red wins, yay, team blue loses. Oh, team blue wins, yay, team red loses. But what about the country as a whole? See how they've literally split politics into this narrative that divides the nation. But what about actual reality on immigration? Reality is incredibly layered. Immigration is both an act of courage and a source of strain. It's labor and love, policy and pain. It doesn't fit into a 2-minute news segment or a presidential debate where each candidate gets 5 minutes to explain their entire policy. It's absurd. So what do we get? Fire, brimstone, name-calling, stereotyping. It's worthless. It's utterly worthless. In fact, the way that political commercials and debates talk about quote-unquote policy, it's even worse than worthless. It's divisive. It's destructive. It's a lie. It's like sheep leads people prone to an ideological fanaticism to division. There's nothing more sad than an ideologically captured sheep who break ties with families or friends over a politician who they have never seen, they don't know at all. That politician doesn't care about them and knows that every voter to a politician is a tool for them to gain power. So you got to keep it simple. But I better stop here lest I step on some toes, and maybe I should stay away from them. But, Postman also said this. He said, television does not extend public discourse. It contracts it. And that's what's happened. Politics no longer invites deliberation. It rewards performance. Our leaders don't explain anything. They entertain. Our voters don't analyze. They react. And as long as politics is show business, citizenship will remain audience participation and no thinking is required. Now, the third sacred spectacle is religion. Oh, this one is really hard. Now, I don't want to dwell too long on religion, but we can't skip it because Postman's critique here was searing. Let me say this. If you can't stand to hear any comments you don't agree with, I want you to consider in your own time and your own self, you need to work on some mental muscle. I'm guilty of this. I'm religious. Man, I struggle to hold my tongue, not to lose my cool when someone says something I don't agree with. My nature isn't necessarily one to not talk. It's taken a lot of work. So if you feel convicted on this, I'm totally with you. I'm with you. But Postman said this: on television, religion, like everything else, is presented simply and without apology as entertainment. Think about it. Religion, the most profound, ephemeral, deeply personal part of human life, becomes a show. And even if you're an atheist and you say you don't believe in anything, well, it's still the other side of the coin. It's still deeply personal to you. Faith, by its nature, is complex. It's philosophical. It's emotional. It's intellectual. It's mystical. It's filled with paradox and poetry. From the reasoned debates of Christian apologetics to the ecstatic worship of Pentecostalism, faith is meant to stretch the human soul. That is what religion does by its very nature. That depth, that complexity, just like in education or in politics, television flattens it. Faith becomes just one of the TV segments. The sermon becomes a soundbite. The sacred becomes a set piece. The music, a rock concert to entertain. You can't film the interior life, but you can sell images of it. Another full disclosure, I go to a non-denominational church, a mega church. One where the music is ridiculously good. The sermons are entertaining. But hey, there are times, I'd be lying, hypocrite, if I don't admit it. If the pastor music choices don't resonate with me, I feel that little tinge of disappointment, like almost like I had paid for a concert and they didn't meet my needs. I mean, I'm sorry, I do it. That's wrong. I know it's wrong. I'm missing the point and I'm missing the boat. And many times I catch myself. And if I don't catch myself and start complaining too much, my wife will catch me and bring me back to the purpose of the whole thing. But still, I fail here. And it's hard to read this from Postman because, well, I'm guilty here. And that's the tragedy that Postman saw. Not that religion went bad, but the medium of TV can't hold the depth of religion. As he wrote, television doesn't encourage reflection, it demands reaction. And once reflection dies, a part of that reverence dies with it. Churches had to change with the times. I get it. The medium moved past the old ways. And in doing so, it became harder and harder to keep the depth and complexity and the transcendental nature of religion. And I know there's many pastors who feel that. And they even mention it from time to time in their sermons. But it's a problem. So education, politics, religion. Heck, we are a culture allergic to deep thought. Postman's warning wasn't just cultural, it was neurological. He saw what neuroscience would later prove. The medium reshapes the mind. When your entire environment runs on speed, motion, novelty, your brain begins to mirror it and expect it. It adapts to the tempo of the machine. Picture a 13-year-old today, a Gen Alpha, native-born, electronic in their hand, basically from the time they could ever remember. They've never known a moment of digital silence. It's a generation that's born on machines. They scroll almost before they read. They swipe before they think. Their world is an endless parade of 7-second videos and trending emotions. They're not lazy. They're not bad people. This is just what they've been trained on from the time they were young. Now, ask that same child to read a 10-page essay on Plato. They look at you like you just handed them a tax form written in Latin. It's not that they can't read. It's that their brain's reward system has been rewired to chase the next stimulus. Neuroscientist by the name of Nicholas Carr put it perfectly in a book called The Shallowest. And he said a few things. He said, what the net seems to be doing is chipping away my capacity for concentration and contemplation. I agree with him. I agree with him wholeheartedly. We know that the constant dopamine hits from digital media literally weaken the neural pathways that are responsible for deep reasoning and abstract thought. So when Postman said, a people informed by television have no need for complexity, he was describing more than behavior. He was describing biology. You can't spend 10 years training your brain for swipes, clicks, and dopamine spikes and then expect it to suddenly crave long-form reflection. And here's the super quiet horror. When the complexity feels painful, democracy becomes impossible. Because thinking for yourself requires some level of discomfort. And discomfort doesn't trend. We're so bad right now that there's people, when they hear something somebody say something they disagree with, they want to fight them or block them or not speak with them. I could go on this for about an hour, but just sit here on that idea mentally for a moment. When complexity feels painful, democracy becomes impossible. Because thinking for yourself requires discomfort, and discomfort doesn't trend. Think about that a little bit longer. This fact. So many people are so frustrated that there are individuals out there that get so warped and so wrapped up in things that other people believe that they don't, that they literally chop them out of their lives, try and silence them, kill them, or ignore them. That's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about here. And in the beginning, I said, that we avoid all pain. We don't want anything to do with it. We want to be entertained. And that's maybe one of the darkest depths that we can get to. But here's a hope. Our human brains are like plastic, elastic. It can change. It can heal. We become what we behold. We shape our tools, and then our tools shape us. So what if you put down certain tools, social media, cable news, and you pick up other tools, such as reading? You don't have to replace all TV. You don't have to replace all going online. But what if you take 20-25% of your time? Let's say in a day you have 4 hours a day that you're online, scrolling mindlessly, doing stuff. And you're going to tell me, and you're probably thinking, oh, not me, I never do that. Yeah, you do probably. You just don't keep track of it. But let's just, out of theory, say 4 hours of your day, from the time you wake up till the time you go to sleep, you're online and you're looking at something, right? So what if you took 1 hour a day and you read? Because neuroscience says that we become what we behold. We shape our tools, and then our tools shape us. How about you put down that phone, pick up a hard book. Don't read it online. Get the book. Pick it up. Put the other one down. And neuroscience agrees. It says when we unplug, when we slow down, when we read deeply, the very architecture of our brain begins to rewire. And your gray matter inside your head grows in regions tied to focus. And here's a great one, empathy. Stress hormones drop. Cognitive endurance increases. In one Stanford study, students who practiced sustained reading for just 6 weeks, notice not a year, 6 weeks, showed measurable improvement in attention span and working memory. The act of deep reading itself rebuilt their minds. How amazing is that? So no, seriousness is not lost forever. but we have to relearn. We have to rethink. You don't have to become a monk or toss your phone in a lake. Just give your mind room to breathe. Turn off the feed, pick up the book, sit with a hard thought until it stops being uncomfortable. Because the ability to think deeply, it's not a gift. It's a muscle. It's a muscle you have to exercise. And most of us just haven't worked out in a while, intellectually speaking. Postman didn't tell us to destroy our technology. He told us to see what it is clearly and appreciate how dangerous it can be left unchecked. To remember that every medium that we use has a message, and the message of entertainment is always the same. Don't think, just feel. Have fun. Don't think, just feel. Have fun. But freedom begins where feeling ends and thinking begins. So read slowly. Think those longer thoughts. And as always, guard your mind from the noise. Wow, so that was a big lesson that we went through today. So if you made it to the end, thank you for tuning in. Hey, if you could do me a huge favor, forward this podcast to someone you think could benefit. Also subscribe to this podcast wherever you happen to listen to it, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We're on all the major platforms. And I'll tell you why. Lately, we've been bending the algorithms a bit in a very good way, and the listener totals are climbing pretty rapidly of late. And the more that people that listen, that like, that subscribe, the higher it ranks, and the more people that listen. But I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your desire to push yourself mentally, listening to something that can change and build your intellectual freedom. So have a great week and look forward to next week. We only have 2 chapters left in our book from Postman, and after that we'll move on from there. But until then, have yourself a wonderful week.